Okay, good morning everyone. We start our third lecture. It is fourth actually if we take the break into account. So today we'll move to the new topic, and that is about intelligent agents. Um, Let me share my screen with you. So before we move on to the idea of intelligent agents, first, what are the two approaches that computational scientists have taken towards artificial intelligence, or scientists in general? Machine intelligence can be implemented either through the implementation of what they call law of thought or through the intelligent action. So one relies on the idea that every intelligent act can be described in the form of certain laws, the way mind thinks. So if we can form the laws of our thought and find some way of formulating it on a computer, we'll be able to create intelligent machines or intelligent systems. The other approach goes beyond thought. It doesn't rely on the thought process due to its limitations. I'll explain to you. It relies on the action, if the action is intelligent or not. So here I have taken, just for your fun, two different logos of two companies. One is Think Different from Apple, and the other is Just Do It from Nike. One relying on thought, other relying on action. So first, a few words about the laws of thought. The laws of thought were originally developed by Aristotle as far back in the Greek philosophy, and he laid the foundation of logic. And the artificial intelligence principles, AI principles, based on laws of thought, will rely on the idea of logic. And many of you must have heard about syllogism. Can any of you tell me how many of you have actually heard about syllogism? I'll unshare my screen and interact with you directly to know what you understand from syllogism. How many of you know syllogism? Can you raise your hands and just tell me briefly? I will spend a few minutes on this topic, your understanding of syllogism. Any one of you? Just raise your hands and tell me if you know about syllogism or logic.
So not exactly, but it's supposed to use.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact. So whatever you think, you just participate. That is welcome.
It's supposed to use deductive reasoning to reach to some sort of an argument,
Can you give me an example?
some sort of a logical conclusion.
Yeah. Can you give me an example? They're very. I mean, it is very well-known idea. Syllogism is a very well-known concept. So,
Sir, in Greek philosophy itself, when there was an argument presented that everything was made of atoms, so they just used one logical bounding to say that there is nothing smaller than atoms and atoms can't be broken down, and then they use that to reach a logical conclusion, which is that everything is made up of atoms which can't be broken down further, hence that is the smallest unit of every object.
So actually, syllogism relies on deriving conclusions by a series of arguments, series of logical arguments. So for instance, if I say A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, then you can draw a conclusion from this about a relationship between A and C. Is it correct? What is the conclusion you will draw? If A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, can you infer something about a relationship between A and C?
Than
No, A is bigger than C, right?
Sorry, A is bigger than C.
Yeah, so this kind of this is about size comparison, but it is, if A is true and A is true only if B is true, then therefore B is true. That kind of syllogism and that kind of logic comparison statements are used for describing to state what is called syllogism. So it is a kind of a logical rules. So if you can, if for any system, if you can devise logical rules, if X is true, then Y is true, and if Y is true, then Z is true. Therefore, X true may imply that Z is true. So these kind of sequential statements can come together and form a logical sequence which is called syllogism. And based on this, you can derive intelligent systems. You can create machines which can take intelligent decisions. So these are called laws of thought. I go back to share the screen again. There, this is written in the so what earlier AI experts did was they created these logical representations on computers and notations for them, and a number of the AI based languages were developed, like Lisp you may have heard of. So many of the implementations of AI were based on the idea of syllogism and logical representation of logic on computer. So this happened in 19th century when the logicians developed a precise notation for statements about objects in the world and the relations among them. And about 60 years ago, by 1965, it was believed that if you can write any task, any solvable problems in the logical notations, then you will be able to solve it. So, but the first thing is to describe it in terms of logical principles, and then these logical principles should be, a machine should be able to solve them. So this is the law of thought approach, but this laws of thought approach has limitations, because all intelligence cannot be described as simple logical rules. In fact, many times logic is not clear, and decisions, when they are taken, it is not clear why a particular decision has been taken. So intelligence goes beyond certain, just simple logic, or beyond the simple laws of thought approach. So mere thinking intelligence, here we are talking about thinking. So mere thinking intelligently is not enough. An intelligent system should also be able to act. When you are creating intelligent machines, you are not just making machines think. And this is again a question whether machines can think or not. So but you're not just implementing the thought process into the machines. You want your machines to act, your robots to do a particular task, your cars to drive automatically. So do things that a human mind, an intelligent mind would do otherwise, without actually knowing how it is doing. Sometimes that is what happens. So laws of thought approach, therefore, was found to be inadequate for this. And then came the idea of the agent-based understanding. Before I go to agent-based, I give you a development in psychology, which will also build some kind of a parallel between what happened much earlier in psychology than what happened in computational sciences later on. So as I said earlier in my earlier classes, the intelligence and the process of intelligence has been of great interest to psychologists. Primarily, one of the primary purposes was to improve the learning process. So for the educationists and for the learning experts, the idea of intelligence and how people learn, how a child learns and how adults learn, this was important. And then, of course, for treating psychological problems, etc., that is what behavior scientists were trying to do. So in 1904, Pavlov got a Nobel Prize, a Russian scientist, in physiology. And what he did was he tried to understand how some animals learn. And of course, these ideas would be implemented on human beings also. So what he did was, the experiment briefly says, you can read more about the experiment, but the basic inspiration from the experiment is that there is a dog, when he sees food, he salivates. So there is a particular response that the food generates. So food, therefore, is an environmental stimulus to the dog, and the salivation is the response, the body physiological response of the dog. And his pioneering experiment was that he was able to generate the saliva generation without presenting the food, by creating a relationship to an unconditioned or neutral stimulus. So there are two types of stimulus. One stimulus is the food, and in the unconditioned response is that the dog, when the dog sees the food, it salivates or drools. When there's a neutral stimulus, say just a whistle, and on the whistle there is no drooling and there is no saliva produced. What he did was he tried to create the two stimulus, present the two stimulus simultaneously, the food and the whistle. And over a period of time, the dog mind was able to condition his response based on this stimulus, which was earlier neutral. That is, somehow the dog linked the food and the whistle. And later on, when food was not presented, only the whistle was presented, the dog was able to salivate. So this kind of stimulus response relationship and utilizing this for conditioning, presenting neutral stimuli and linking them was done earlier by the psychologists. And I presented this slide to show that the understanding of stimulus, kind of environment change in the environment, and a response of an individual, which is considered to be intelligent or acting, has been there in psychology much earlier. But later on, this idea of intelligent agents is a much more formalized version of this, which was independently studied by computational scientists. And in this, you would see that there is a great parallel between stimulus response relationship in those experiments and the percept action relationship in the agents. So here I describe artificial intelligence as rational agents. So what it says is that an agent is basically a system which tries to do an action, intelligent action. So an agent is just anything or any machine or any individual, just something that acts. So, and what it does is all computer programs do something, but computer agents are expected to do a little more. So computer agent may be just a program, but computer agent may be a robot, or maybe a whole machine that is fitted with certain sensors and actuators and a number of tasks. So the whole system is an agent in this case. And as this figure shows, that there is an agent takes the inputs from its environment, and the inputs that it receives from the environment is called a percept. And then after receiving these inputs through its sensors, then it processes them and decides an action, which is carried out by virtue of the additional mechanical or other devices called actuators. And then actuators lead to an action. So the percepts are received from the environment and action is sent to the environment. And together this can be considered to be kind of an agent world. So agent world is composed of the agent itself and the environment surrounding it. Environment produces a percept, agent receives that percept, and in response to that percept, the agent acts through the actuators. So an intelligent machine in that case, or intelligent agent in this case, when you are devising one, will be made up of three parts basically. Sensor part, which receives the inputs from the environment. This may be any sensor, this may be your audio sensor, this may be a camera, this can be a touch or anything. And this can be some information through a computer program. And the actuators may be again some kind of a device. So agents act. Why do they act? They act to achieve, because when they are doing certain useful tasks, these agents act so as to achieve the best outcome. So now best outcome has to be defined. What is the best outcome? What you want your agent to do? That is what your machine intelligence will try to aim. And when you're trying to make an intelligent machine based on agent model, then you will have to describe what is the agent trying to achieve. And then there will be situations when the agent cannot decide with certainty what to do. So when there is uncertainty, the rational agent acts to achieve the best expected outcome. So there is one ideal outcome, and if the ideal is not possible and there is uncertainty, and the sensors have not received all the information that they have to utilize to act, then in that case, whatever is the best outcome, the rational agent should be able to produce it. So the goal of machine intelligence in that case would be, or creating intelligent machines would be, to create intelligent agents or rational agents, as you would call them. So now a little more about when we use the word percept, and there is a term called percept sequence. So because the percept or the sensory information that the machine receives, the agent receives from the environment, is not just a single input. It's a whole sequence of events, a sequence of sensory inputs. So this is called a percept sequence. So there's some definitions are written here. Percept is the contents received by an agent through its sensors. In contrast, yeah, so here also again I refer to some thoughts in psychology, those because psychology goes in parallel with machine intelligence. In psychology, perception psychologists often define perception is a combination of what we sense and what our previous learning is. So sometimes, many times, we see some dots, and the sensory information is just a few dots, but our mind interprets them and tries to give meanings to this, and we might see some characters, we might see some words, we can basically what is written as scattered objects or scattered circles or dots in our sensation. So psychologists have known for a long time that a human perception is basically a combination of the sensory inputs it's received, or through the five senses, for what we see, what we hear. And what we see and what we hear is not sufficient. Our mind, we should have learned a priori to interpret this sensory information. As a famous saying goes, that the eyes cannot see what the mind does not know. That so the sensory information is translated into a meaningful meaningful perception through a process of interpretation which is there in the mind. In the case of the intelligent agents, percept is just described as a sequence of, or a perceptual sequence, as a contents received through the sensors. So this kind of a little distinction between the psychological understanding of perception and percept, as we are calling them in terms of computational language. So when we also use the term percept sequence. So an intelligent agent is placed in environment for a long time, it keeps receiving the percept one after the other. So if it is a camera attached to a robot, it is receiving the images over a period of time. If it is an audio, it is receiving audio signals over a long time. And then it also may be receiving kind of a feedback that the intelligent agent acted in response to an environment, and its action modified the environment in return, and that modification may also be received again. So percept sequence is essentially the complete history of everything that the agent has perceived or received from the sensory inputs. So mathematically, now there are a couple of terms here: agent function and agent program. So mathematically, an agent's behavior is described by the agent function that maps any given percept sequence to an action. So when you want to computationally design an intelligent agent, what you have to do is that if this is the environmental input, if this is my sensory input, this should be my action. So this in this figure, as I showed earlier, this question mark is basically an agent function. So the sensors receive some information, and then the actuators have to act. But in this process, what sensation or what sensory inputs will produce what kind of action is determined by what is called the agent function. And this agent function may be simply a mapping of some. If I can describe each of the sensory inputs in a finite manner, suppose there are only 1,000 types of sensory inputs possible, and 1,000 values possible for a single sensor. Suppose I have just one sensor in my intelligent agent, or in my rational agent, I have suppose just one sensor, and this one sensor can only receive 1,000 different possible values. So for instance, when I see a single picture, how much information my eyes can process in a single picture. This can actually be computed mathematically, because I cannot see less than a particular pixel size, and how many pixels are there in the image. And then what is the information that my eye can process in a single pixel, how many colors it can distinguish. So based on that, even our eyes' capacity to process sensory information can be quantified. Same way, if I'm creating an artificial machine or artificial rational agent, I can quantify how much information it can actually receive, and what are the different possible values that these sensors can receive. So I can exhaustively do them actually in theory in many cases, but not always. If I can exactly and exhaustively list out these are the possible sensory inputs. So there are two things. One is sensory input type, that is audio, video, etc. The other is the sensory input values, that is this particular sensory input, audio values, how much I can interpret. What is the value? So this quantification. So now each of these values, or each of this attribute value, or this sensory input value, can be mapped to a particular action. What action do I want? So these actions in a very simple machine, these actions can be simply binary. Move or not move, or move right or move to the left. If these are just my sensory outputs, so these are my actuators have to do. Suppose I'm just creating a machine which either moves right or moves to the left. So this is thinking of, say, steering of a self-driving car. So if steering of a self-driving car is considered to be, let us say, an intelligent agent for a limited understanding, and the inputs are being received from, say, perception of the objects in front of the car. So the sensory information is received by the audio and video from the front, and based on a decision the actuator has to take, turn right or turn left. Now, this turning right and left can be just binary, right or left. It can just turn right or left 2 steps, or it can be continuous. It can turn 30 degree, turn 20 degree, turn 40 degree. So when I make this continuous, then the number of actuator values is kind of infinity. There is no finite description of the actuators. I'll come to these thoughts again. So an exhaustive mapping of percept action pairs is impossible, as I just described, that in the case of steering, you cannot completely map that if this is what you see on the screen, this is what you have to do. So there is a sensory input coming on the screen, and this, based on this screen, then the steering has to decide how much to turn to the right and left. So this, since this is a rational number, this is impossible to actually to describe as one-to-one mapping of percept to action. So now, how do you do this? You have to create some kind of an agent program. So this introduces another term called agent program, which is actually the practical implementation of the agent function. So here you have to distinguish. Agent function is a direct mapping of the sensory inputs. The sensory inputs are percepts or percept sequence. So a percept sequence is mapped to an actuator action, just like a stimulus response. And this is called an agent function. Agent program is an implementation inside there may be a microprocessor, or there may be a software that actually tries to implement this, and even the percept sequences which the machine has never seen them before, there can be an action that can be assigned to those percept sequences which the machine has never seen before. So therefore, an implementation in the form of agent program is carried out. So this gives an example. Again, this example is taken from the book, but I'll collect some examples from you soon. So this example is the vacuum cleaner problem, and an agent, vacuum cleaner acting as an agent. So let us say the vacuum cleaner world is composed of just 2 tiles. So this is for simplicity. It is thought that the world is composed of just 2 tiles. It may be dirty or it may be clean. So there are 2 possible values that each tile can have, dirty or clean, and 2 possible values of the geographical location, tile A and tile B. These are the basically complete environment can be described in the form of 4 values. One is tile ID, A or B. The other is tile cleanliness level, dirty or clean. So this is my environment is described for this vacuum cleaner as sensory inputs about dirty and clean, and current location of the vacuum cleaner, whether the vacuum cleaner is currently located in tile A or tile B. And what is the agent function? That the vacuum cleaner has to decide on 2 things. Either it has to decide whether to move to the right or move to the left. And secondly, it has to decide whether the vacuum cleaner should suck the dust or should not suck the dust. So this is basically the action or that the actuator has to do. So your intelligent agent here is now composed of the environment, composed of the sensors that can give me the information about the current location. They should be able to give me the information about the cleanliness level of the tile of the current location. And then the actuator should be able to do 2 things. It should be able to move the vacuum cleaner from tile A to tile B and tile B to tile A. So turn right or to turn left. In this case, it is just 1 dimensional, 2 tiles only. So it has to just move in the right direction or the left direction. So this table shows the what is called the agent function. So this is the agent function mapping percept sequence translated to an action. So if it is clean, turn right. If it is dirty, then suck the particular tile where it is located, and then go to the next tile right. And then if B is clean, B left, and if B is dirty, then suck again. And this is how this percept sequence will be created. So percept sequence, as I show you here in the first line, there is just 1 percept. Then there's just one here. And as I continue to do this, the number of inputs that my agent has is the entire history, because it did clean first, it did clean, clean, clean. These are the tasks it did. So this entire history may be stored, and this history will be useful for taking the feedback and improving the function or improving the agent program. So that is how a one of the simplest example of an agent, a rational agent, works. So now let us take from you some examples of intelligent uh, agents, rational agents. So some examples I have written here. An intelligent air conditioner that regulates temperature based on room occupancy and room temperature. Can some of you tell me? So again, I come back to you directly and ask you your inputs about, can you create an agent function for any of these machines? So just one example that I have given. First, let me ask you to create the the agent function for an air conditioner which regulates temperature, increases, or basically by regulating temperature, what it would do is turn off or turn on the AC air conditioner, and then it will receive the environmental inputs. Can you describe to me what are the percept sequences and what are the environment, and how can we create a table of agent function for this intelligent air conditioner? I seek your inputs. It may not be a perfect description, but whatever comes to your mind from a common sense, can you tell me how an intelligent agent-based air conditioner will be defined, or what will be the agent function for such an air conditioner, which takes, I already described, which takes the input, which will take the room temperature and the occupancy of the room into account. So what will be the percept mapping to the...
I'm audible, right?
Yes, please, Marvin.
So basically, if I know the occupancy, the agent knows the occupancy of the room, we can calculate the average heat emitted by human body. And if we know the temperature of the room and the desired temperature, we can accordingly adjust the power of the air conditioners so that it cools the room properly and
Can you create
maintains
the simplest possible agent function in this case? Because complete description of this machine is difficult, because there will be many possible combinations of agent percepts and percept sequences and their outcomes. So I'm not trying to make it analog. I'm just trying to make a binary decision. So trying to create a simple version, just an equivalent of vacuum cleaner, just to give a feel of your own. Yeah. So can you create that simple machine in this case, simple air conditioner as an intelligent agent? Yeah, Marvin, complete your answer, please.
Sir, if we have to simplify the case, we'll just have to take the decision
So first we define the percepts and percept sequences. So what are our percepts?
Sir, occupancy and temperature of the room.
Yes, occupancy and temperature of the room are the two percepts. And the history of these actions will be percept sequence at a given time. So, okay, so our sensors, we should have two sensors in this case, in this machine. What sensors should do?
Temperature sensor and...
So one is the temperature sensor, that is thermostat. And the other is the occupancy sensor, maybe a camera.
Yes, sir.
So my sensory inputs in this case, my environment is described in the form of two parameters or two percepts. One is the temperature of the room coming from thermostat, and one is the occupancy coming from the camera. So this is how I define my percept. That's fine. So next, and what is the actuator has to do?
Sir, it has to raise or drop temperature or do nothing.
So how can it raise the temperature? So basically an air conditioner usually just turns off and on, right? It either runs or it stops. So how will it take a decision? It will take a decision if the occupancy is 0. Let us say if the occupancy levels are 0 and 1. I'm making again a simplest version of this. Occupancy being 0 or being 1. That is no occupancy or room is occupied. So my occupancy values can be 0 and 1. And my temperature may be, now my temperature can take an infinite number of percept values, right? Can I simplify this?
Sir,
we
if
can
it's colder,
compare it
it
to
will be.
desired value.
Say again. Ishan, you were saying?
Sir, I was saying if it's let's say colder than the intended temperature, then it can be 0, otherwise
Exactly.
1.
Perfect. So instead of measuring absolute temperature, I just use some reference. So maybe I use the reference temperature of the current temperature in the air conditioner and temperature of the room, or some threshold at which I have fixed. So my target temperature is my reference if the target temperature is above the current temperature or below the temperature. So I may have some reference value. Based on this, I should take a binary decision to increase temperature is higher or temperature is lower. So these will be the two percepts I will have to give to my system, to the agent program. So agent function will be, now in that case, the actuator will have two values, turn off or turn on the air conditioner. Right. So this basically, if I can map all the exhaustive combinations of this will be an agent function. But now in the same system, you will think of a situation when agent function cannot be completely described, right? You cannot completely describe because occupancy is high, low, and what should happen, temperature should be increased. So if these values are analog and the number of possible values my environment can take is infinite, I cannot write a complete mapping of the agent percepts or percept sequences towards the actuators, the actions that I desire from it. So in that case, I will need an agent program which is intelligent, which can take into account new environmental scenarios and produce an outcome for my agent to act. Can you think of, now this is the example I gave. Can you think of your own examples and just describe what are your actuators in this case? What is the environment? This whole thing, again, just to remind, this whole thing, the air conditioner, the room environment, and the temperature, everything can be called the agent and agent world, agent environment world. So this is the complete description of the system. So environment is part of the world of this. So like in the case of vacuum, this was vacuum cleaner world. In this case, you can say this is the air conditioner world. So air conditioner world is air conditioner itself, its components, actuators. What are my percepts, percept types, and then there will be percept values. So what are my percept types? Percept types will depend on my sensors. What are the sensors associated to it? And then the second is the actuators. What are my actuators? So let us start with the description of the percept types in the washing machine. So what are percept types? What are the sensors?
It can be the weight of the clothes inside the washing machine, and there can be a time percept type.
So one is the percept, the sensors will be sensors for receiving the input from the environment. One of them is the weight sensor, which tells you how much is the weight of the clothes in the machine.
Yes, sir. Yes.
This is one. What is the
The
second?
next would be the time for which the machine is on, let's say.
Time the machine has been running.
Yes.
Should it matter for the?
So because it.
You mean for a subsequent decision to stop?
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
Okay. Okay. Let us say timer is one sensor, and so time is one of these percept types. Another percept type here is the weighing machine sensor. And what else?
These two should be enough, and then we can.
These two. Let us say these two. I mean, it can be anything, but let us say these two are the ones. And yeah, so one student writes rightly that the third very important sensor here, or the percept, will be the water level sensor. You have to also know what is the water level. Based on that, the machine will act. If there is no water, it should not spin, for example.
Yes, sir.
So 3 sensors that you people have thought about. There may be more. So, I mean, more sensors, better decision perhaps will be taken up. So now an intelligent agent or a good intelligent machine should be the one which visualizes, which imagines what are the sensors required. So these are, you will list out the sensors and you will list out the possible types of inputs that these sensors will give to the machine to act. And then you will visualize what are the possible values that these sensors can take. For example, if you say water level or the weight of the clothes, so you have to say what are the possible values that the weight of the cloth can take.
Say we can classify them as 0 or like.
Yeah, so if you do not assign these categories, basically it will become infinite values. It can be anything. So you cannot really create a one-to-one mapping in this case, but you can definitely binarize. You can definitely create bins and binarize it, and you can create kind of discrete values within this. So these are all details that you have to implement it subsequently. But let us, for the simplest trivial washing machine, intelligent machine, you can say you want to decide whether to spin or not to spin. This is my actuator outcome. So spinning in that case is an effector, is an actuator. And the inputs are these 3 inputs that you just defined. And so percept sequence, and agent function have been defined in this case. So you can think of many more examples, and I move on to further explain. Now, question is if I now define the agent function does a mapping, or it may be done through an agent program which tells you how an input percept sequence will be converted or mapped to an actuator action. So there is a term called rational agent. So it should do the right thing. What should it do? So, suppose you have the value of the weight of the machine, weight of the clothes in the machine. You have only the binary outputs whether to spin the machine or not. But who tells and what decides whether spinning is the right thing to do at this moment? Whether spinning, and if there are multiple options of spinning available, which of them is the correct option to do? How will the machine know what action to take? So a machine which does the right thing is called the rational machine. Is it? So you just theoretically define what is a rational agent. A rational agent should give the best mapping between the percept sequence and agent action, because there is some mapping inside the machine and there is some mapping in our brain. Suppose if I am an intelligent agent, so based on the inputs I received, I act, I do certain actions, but whether my action is the best action or not is not guaranteed. I act based on my agent program. I have a certain agent program inside me, and this agent programs converts my sensory inputs or my perception of the environment around me into a mapping. But is this the best mapping? And how do we decide what is the best mapping? Can you give me some thought about what would be the best mapping in the case of machine? How will you decide when you are creating a machine and you want to tell your machine to decide whether to spin or not? How will you map it? Or in the case of air conditioner, you want to tell whether the examples of the air conditioner and the vacuum cleaner are easier examples where the outcomes are easily defined, but even there are complications. There are complications in the case of vacuum cleaner. What do you want your vacuum cleaner to do? You want vacuum cleaner to keep the floor clean, or you want your vacuum cleaner to save electricity, or you want vacuum cleaner to run for the minimum amount of time. So there may be multiple decisions. I'll come to this point, which will come in the performance measure of the intelligent rational agent. But here, the first thing is, what is the best thing to do? A challenge for AI is to teach the machine, give the best mapping. Even if I know the best mapping, how to tell the machine to choose that particular function. So I can do an exact mapping. If I have complete description of events, then I can simply devise my machine to create one-to-one mapping. I have 1 million possible values of the sensory inputs, and I have just 100 output possible values. So I can create a table, and my intelligent machine may be simply made up of a set of tables. And my machine may be intelligent, and it may be in real time computing the decision and taking a decision and telling the actuators what to do. So, but as I said, and as you all understand, prior computation of this mapping is not possible. Second, now, again, the question is, what is the right thing to do? And this idea of right thing to do in philosophy or in science, in psychology, rather moral philosophy, the right thing is predefined in multiple ways. What is the right thing to do? One is called cultural relativism. There are this particular article, quite an interesting article, summarizes the 9 principles of moral philosophy. What is the right thing to do? Because your intelligent machine also has the right thing to do. And many times your intelligent machines and your devices, artificially intelligent machines or intelligent agents, will come across the ethical questions. When it is driving and the car has to take a decision, whether, and the car faces a situation when one of the two in its screen will be killed, a child and an adult. Then the car has to decide whether to kill the child or the adult. You cannot just brush away this decision. So therefore, the moral philosophy also is important in this case. How a morality, how the right thing is decided by philosophers. So one is based on the cultural relativism, that is, different cultures believe that this particular thing is right thing to do, and this is what will be respected in our culture. This is what is considered to be the good thing. One is the utilitarian aspect, that is, an action which gives us the most happiness is the right action. Can you can I collect from you people, what is your wisdom? What do you think out of these 9 principles? What is the most important principle of determining what is the right thing? You can look at the slides on the screen, and from this screen there are 9 possible ways that moral philosophers have described of defining the right thing. So from your views, what do you think is the most important of these?
Sir, it's a very situation-based answer. There is no correct objective answer.
Yes, but if still, obviously, this is a way you can say that this depends on a context. But in general, if you are given a choice out of these 9 principles, will you be able to prioritize which is the most important? You are saying you cannot prioritize, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, I can prioritize and maybe others can also, but then it's again a very subjective answer.
But if you are making intelligent rational agents, then rational agent has to take a decision. It cannot leave it to the situation. When you create an intelligent agent, a rational agent, we are calling a rational agent. So rational agent has to know a priori what is the right thing to do. You cannot leave it to a situation. We as humans are not a priori programmed to do the right thing. And many times we do something and later on we think we didn't do the right thing because we acted in a given instant of time. We do not exactly process all the information that we have. And this will also come to a question that is in this book also the question is discussed, that is it a rational behavior, our behavior, is it a rational behavior if we take a decision? So like in this book, they have given an example that this writer says that I'm in Champs-Élysées and I know that this place is usually not occupied by pedestrians and there are no cars on this road. So I cross the road. I think that there will be no cars on the road. And suddenly the author describes in this book, he says that suddenly an air crash happens and something falls from the roof, from the aircraft, and I get hurt by this. So then the rational question he asks is, was it rational to cross the road in the first place without considering the possibility that something can fall on my head from the top? Is it rational or not? So at this point, I will come again in the context of machines when we discuss the comparison between the omniscience versus rationality. But even before I come to that, I just wanted you to know that the moral philosophy, what we say the right thing, what our machines will do the right thing, because machines are trying to copy the behavior or incorporate the values which we learn from moral philosophy. We all have a moral philosophy. If we are faced with a situation, suppose I have a situation when there is on the one side is virtue, on the other side is ego, or on the one side is absolute moral values, on the other side is utilitarian aspect. So what will you choose? I'm not putting you in a difficult situation. I'm just trying to highlight that behind the definition of the right thing, or behind the definition of what is the right action in a given circumstances, in the presence of a certain set of percept sequences in a given, when I have a given percept sequence, the right decision is not straightforward. How will I tell? But intelligent machines bypass from these moral philosophies. They are based on what is called consequentialism. So consequentialism is one of the fundamental or the foundation principle of the machine intelligence. That is, what it says is that if the sequence of its states that environment undergoes as a result of agent action is desirable, then the agent has performed well. When do I say that my agent is doing well? When do I say my agent is the agent I desire? Or not even doing, if I create an agent function, I create, if this is the input, this is the output you do. So in the case of simple decisions such as air conditioner, I'm looking at the occupancy. I have a big hall and there is just one person in the big hall. So what should my machine do? Should my air conditioner run for just one person or not? This is a decision that my intelligent machine, my intelligent agent, rational agent has to take. So these have to be incorporated into the system. So this is defined by way of what we call the performance measure. So every intelligent machine comes with a kind of performance measure, which is based on our prior understanding of what we want, what is desirable for us. And this desirability has to be quantified a priori before we include, before we design our intelligent machines. So this is called, the idea is called consequentialism. That is, we do not look whether my action, in the previous slides, when I'm saying my actions are not determined by the consequence, my actions are determined by my values. So many times uh, uh, we stick to a certain set of values without bothering about the consequences. So moral philosophy is not consequential in nature. Moral philosophy is value loaded, and it is based on what is right and wrong by our understanding of what is correct and not. Whereas the machine intelligence is not based on values. Machine intelligence is based on the consequence. If I do this, what is the outcome? And if we want our values also to be part of our consequentialism, we incorporate them into our consequences. That are our values getting violated by way of doing this? So that will be also encoded in the form of consequentialism. So this is the basic philosophy of the right thing in the intelligent agents. And this, once we have defined what is my desirable behavior of the machine, what do I want my machine to do? Whether I want my vacuum cleaner to save electricity, or whether I want my machine to keep the tiles clean irrespective of how much electricity is used, and whether I want my air conditioner to make every individual in the room to feel comfortable, or whether my goal is to save electricity again, or whether my priority is to not have noise, or to have. So these kind of trade-offs have to be a priori defined, and based on that you define this is the consequence. If this is the action taken, this will be the consequence, and then based on that the rational agent will create agent function. So then only if this once I have defined this is my desired behavior, this is what I want from my machine, this is what I want from my washing machine, this is what I want from my vacuum cleaner or an air conditioner or self-driving car, this is what I want, I have described this, then my agent will be called rational based on the performance measure that I have defined. So this rational agent is the one that maximizes the performance measure. So I can say my machine is rational agent if the performance measure has been maximized, the maximum performance has been achieved. And this rationality also depends on the agent's prior knowledge of the environment. I know a priori that if, so again, for example, in the case of, I want my machine, my vacuum cleaner to save electricity. So I cannot know beforehand all the possible combinations in which the electricity is saved. So of course, you can get a trivial solution that don't run the vacuum cleaner at all, or don't run the air conditioner at all. The electricity is saved. Now there has to be a trade-off. You have to define it has to do cooling, and it also has to save electricity. Now how do you give a trade-off? You have to incorporate into the machine, and therefore the machine has to over a period of time learn to save electricity and to try to optimize the use of electricity and the cleanliness or the temperature adaptation of the room. So agent has a prior knowledge of the environment, and the actions also have to be considered, and the agent's percept sequence so far, which is a which I call the history of the percepts which are incorporated. For each possible percept sequence, a rational agent should select an action. So now, based on the inputs, multiple actions are possible. Which action the machine should take is it will select that action which is expected to maximize its performance measure. So performance measure is important to describe an intelligent agent. And given the evidence provided, and how do we achieve this performance measure? This will come from the evidence from the provided by the percept sequence and whatever built-in knowledge to have. So now here comes the two questions. One is the experience of the machine from the past, and the second is the built-in knowledge. So one is the design, and the other is the adaptation or evolution of the machine. Machine evolves over a time, it learns. So that is where the machine learning will come. So machine learning will train this or the AI will become more effective over a period of time as it is learning. If simultaneously I'm measuring the performance measure or the performance, and I see if this were the input, this is the mapping produced, and this is the energy consumed, and this is the comfort level. I can take the feedback from the users, etc. And if I have this over a period of time, this machine will evolve and machine will learn and to perform better. And the performance score will over a period of time be improved. And there the machine learning will contribute. So I already discussed that some of these outcomes, some of the environmental description of the environment are not known to the machine from the beginning. Something may be very unusual happening. So these machines may not be geared up for all the impossible or very rare events, and therefore the rationality should not mean that I am rational only when I know everything. It is possible that if when I act in a rational way, I do something which is terribly harmful. But because I act based on the information that I have and based on the prior experience I have, but something totally different may happen. And in this situation, when something totally different happens, my rationality will not be effective. My rationality will not produce the best outcome. So, in the case of rationality of machines, or in the case of rational agents, as I call them, I should not assume omniscience that they know everything. So they basically learn on two things, as in the last point on this slide. So these machines rely on information gathering. It will collect the information from the environment, the outcomes, and the electricity saved, the temperature, the user feedback. So every intelligent machine should also have a mechanism of information gathering over a period of time. This is observing the large scale environmental milieu in real time and be able to adapt to it and learn to create better agent functions. So the goal of learning is to create better agent functions. And what is a better agent function? A better agent function is one which maximizes the performance measure that I have defined a priori. So then now question is, if my machine, my air conditioner will only learn when to turn on or off, then in the beginning, when I just start the machine, at that time it will just do random actions. If it is doing random actions, that is not desirable also. So there will be some kind of initial design in the machine. So that is called designed into the machine. So there will be some base level at which the machine, the vacuum cleaner or the washing machine or the air conditioners, these intelligent devices work at some minimum level of efficiency. They will adapt over a period of time. So the machines which can learn over a period of time, they are called autonomous. They are free to learn and they are free to take their own decisions. And usually this autonomous behavior is achieved by way of some learnings, usually a machine learning. Whereas some behavior is already incorporated in the machine, which is called the design. So designed component and the autonomous component. So we do not want our machines to be completely autonomous because some kind of initial functionality is required in these machines. So now there is another idea here. So when I describe an intelligent agent completely, an intelligent agent is often, I describe three things first. That was the agent type and the environment and sensors. Now, a little expanded version of that, you have agent type, you have its performance measure, you have the environment, how you define it, you have actuators, and you have sensors. So this together is called the task environment of an intelligent agent or a rational agent. So this is an example here, a taxi driver. What are the performance measures for a taxi driver? If it is a machine, this taxi driver may be a machine, and it may be an individual human being also. So if it is a human, then taxi driver is an agent. So this agent, when do you say this taxi driver is good or not? Is he doing the right thing or not? So you will define a performance measure, and here the performance measure whether he's driving safely, his speed is fast, he's following the rules, if he's making the passengers comfortable, if is maximizing profits. So like if there is a company like Uber or Ola, they would like to take all these factors into account. What are the performance measures? And they will try to rate their taxi drivers or agents based on these performance measures. And then they have to define a composite scores, how much they give weight to each one of them. So this will be done manually. This cannot done automatically. So there the component of the value-based component of the performance measure will be incorporated by some expert or somebody who decides policy. So this is a matter of policy also. So there are the choice of a performance measure is the matter of policy. What kind of policy you want to incorporate into your rational agent. And the environment for the taxi driver, roads are the environment. Other traffic is an environment. Police is an environment. Pedestrians, customers, weather, these are defined environments. The actuators, I earlier talked about steering. The additional actuators in the taxi will be accelerators, brake, signal, honk, display, speech. These are the actuators. So that is based on these environmental inputs. The driver will decide whether to use steering, whether to use accelerator, whether to apply brakes. So these are the actuator functions. So some kind of a mapping between this environment and actuators will define the agent, and the performance will be defined by these performance measures. And to collect this information from the environment, certain sensors are used: cameras, radar, speedometer, GPS, engine sensors, etc. So you can define your, this whole description is called PEAS description, performance environment actuator sensor description. These are additional PEAS descriptions. I'll just quickly go through one or two of them. So for instance, medical diagnosis. So this is medical diagnosis could be simply a software. Software can act as an agent also. So the performance will be that, what is my goal? What do I want my diagnostic system to do? I want to keep the patients healthy, and I also want to reduce their cost. And what is the environment? Patient, hospital staff are the environment. And then what are my actuators? Display of questions. What will I do if I receive this environment? What will I do? What this diagnostic system will do? It will display certain questions. It will give some tests. It will give some diagnosis, and it will give some treatments. So these are the different actuator functions. And then these are the sensors that are associated: touch screen, voice of the entry of symptoms and finding, etc. So these are kind of additional examples of PEAS description. So software are virtual agents, as I just said. Actuators of a software agent may be just a text, numerical or image output. A percept sequence for a software agent is a representation of physical environment. You define a physical environment, you say symptoms X, Y, Z, coughing, temperature, etc., etc. The complete description of these symptoms may become the software percept sequences, but they are actually the representation of the physical environment or physical conditions. So these task environments, there are some properties associated with the task environments. They may be fully or partially observable. They may, no, here comes the question. There may be these agents that I'm talking about. Our system may be made up of single versus multiple agents. So for instance is gaming. So can you give me examples of some systems which rely on single agent and those which rely on multiple agents? These things are a little too descriptive from here, so I'll just again involve you directly in one-to-one discussion. So give me examples of single agent task environments and multi-agent task environments. This should be common sense, but I want you to give me examples.
Sir, for a multiple agent task environment, we can consider a group of self-driving cars, let's say, all of which are agents which are on a road.
So a group of self-driving cars. So you mean just collecting a set of agents will be a multi-agent system? So we call them multi-agent.
That will constitute a system, right? If they are driving on the road and they have to like interact with each other.
So if you want to treat all of these individual cars to be a combination of a herd of cars driving self, so that is a very theoretically possible situation. But can you think of some simpler situation when you have multi-agent task environments? Think of a game, for example.
So like chess, we can take an example.
Chess is an example of, that's a simple example of multi-agent task environment. Can chess be, can some game be also single agent task environment?
So there are other games which are like, which you can play against, like which are, let's say, single player games. Like
so single player games will be single agent task environments. So
yes.
like crossword. So any game that you play alone without other agents. So why it is important to know that multi-agent and task environments are different? Because there will be competition. And again, if there is a multi-agent task environment, the multiple agents may act in a cooperative way or in a competitive way. Can you from the term tell me what are or some examples of competitive multi-agent task environments and cooperative tasks, multi-agent task environments?
Chess would be competitive, sir.
Say again.
Chess, the example of chess would be a competitive
any multiplayer game will be one-to-one game. Usually will be a competitive multi-agent environment. Can I ask all others to be part of this class and just participate in the class? I appreciate Marvin is participating. Thank you. And earlier Ishan participated. But everybody should be here. It should be a more lively class. If you're not enjoying it, then I'll stop teaching you people from next class. I had promised to teach these classes under the assumption that I will be able to do it. If I'm not able to do it, I'll stop. So just please participate. And I'm asking you very simple questions. My goal is not to trick you. My goal is to get you involved. So I'm asking you, give me examples of some multi-agent task environments. And first, that was my question. And the single agent task environments. And now after this question, my current question is, give me some examples of competitive multi-agent task environments compared to cooperative multi-agent task environments. So one example has come out is chess playing. Any other example? Any example of cooperative multi-agent task environment? Think of any example. I do not have any specific example in my mind. I want you to come up with some examples. Nobody's coming up. Looks like you are too bored.
No, sir. Can't think of one on the spot.
Puzzle. Any cooperative environment. So, I mean, we discussed in the earlier classes, we discussed about the bird's behavior and swarm things and the ant colony. There was some kind of a cooperative action there, isn't it? Any other example?
So we can take an example of a treasure hunt where friends play a treasure hunt. So it will be a cooperative kind of.
So any team game. So for example, soccer, you play as a team. So there is this is a very complex multi-agent system. So if you just focus on one team, then you can think these players have to act in a cooperative manner. Action of one player affects the actions of the others. So this environment is a multi-agent task environment where one team acts in a cooperative aim because it tries to attain the same objectives or tries to maximize this performance measure, which is the same for all of them, right? So these can be some examples. You can think of more examples. Maybe I can let you
Sir,
think.
can our organ system be considered a multi-agent cooperative system?
Exactly. Our whole body acts in a cooperative manner because different parts of our body, different the components of our body, any living system work in a cooperative manner. Yes, good. Okay, so I go back to my slides. Just the last of the day. No, just let me complete this. So these are the ways you can classify the properties of task environments. They can be either fully defined. Sometimes we do not know whether a task is observable or not. Where task environment may have also unobservable components. So it may be, for instance, noisy. I may have, when a self-driving car may not always receive all the information from the surroundings. Some information may be hidden or because of certain technical limitations or because of the noise in my data. So single versus multiple we just discussed. They can also be deterministic versus non-deterministic task environments. Can somebody tell me what is what is the meaning of determinism versus non-determinism?
So deterministic environment is where we can be sure that this is the best solution. But there are some cases where we don't know if we have reached the best solution, so like we take it as the best we can get.
In any real life situation, can you tell me about something deterministic and something non-deterministic?
So
Here the term stochastic is also there, which is here in this context is probabilistic.
sir, we can take a small example of, let's say I have some money and I want to buy, let's say, a soap.
Hmm.
And if I want to maximize the number of soaps I buy, I can minimize the price that I can find in a single shop.
Hmm.
So I know that I have come up with the best solution.
So deterministic, what you're saying is right. Let me formalize this. So deterministic means the answer exists. I may not know it. Deterministic does not mean determined, right? Deterministic means the answer exists. Whereas in the non-deterministic, answer does not exist. I give you example. If I throw the ball from some height, and my question is whether if I drop the ball from my hand, will it go up or will it go down? I know the answer, it will go down, right? And if I know other environmental conditions, I may possibly answer what will happen next. So if the next outcome of an environmental event is known or can be determined in principle at least, this is called deterministic. If the next event is the answer does not exist at all, that is called non-deterministic. So the example of non-deterministic or stochastic, if I put them together, is if I throw a dice, I do not know whether I will get 1, 2, 3, or 5, or 6. I only know there is a probability that I will get this with this probability. I know there are 6 possible outcomes and each of them will have equal probability if the dice is unbiased. So this is a probabilistic situation or a stochastic situation. When I do not know the exact outcome, but I know the possibilities and the probability of each of these. On the other hand, there may be completely non-deterministic events in which I do not know at all what will happen next. So can you think of a completely non-deterministic act? Life and death, for example, is by and large not deterministic. You cannot even compute probability, right? So there may be many situations when our task environment is completely non-deterministic. I do not know. So for instance, a more practical way of looking at non-determinism is that if I'm playing chess with the machine, and on the one hand is machine and on the other hand is the player. So can I tell what will be the next move from the other player? Is it deterministic or non-deterministic or stochastic?
Sir, it can be considered stochastic since there's only a certain number of sane moves in a certain chess position.
Yeah, but it will be called stochastic probably. It is a little difficult to say, but it will be called stochastic if I can exactly tell what are the possible moves. So of course, the number of possible moves is finite that the other person can take. Can I calculate the probability of each of these moves? I cannot calculate. I know these are
Not
the
actually.
possibilities, so but I cannot tell what is the probability unless I have profiled that player and his moves thoroughly. If I have profiled that player thoroughly and I know exactly what is the probability of each of these events, or if I for a machine probably I can tell because machine works on a predefined agent function. But for an individual, I will probably not be able to tell the probability of each of these his moves. Although I will be able to enumerate what are the possible moves, but which of the move has what probability, this cannot be determined. So therefore, it will be by and large a non-deterministic task environment. So if this is a non-deterministic task environment, I cannot predict the action of the environment, then my intelligent machine has to take into account this, that I do not know what is the move, and then it has to work on all possible combinations. So same way, there is another classification of task environments between episodic and sequential. That is, my task and my environment changes only once, and I have a single snapshot of the environmental input. Whereas it can be a sequence of events, it is a sequential. Episodic means just one occurrence. And then the environment may be changing around me. What is the best solution today may not remain the best solution tomorrow. So then my intelligent agent also has to take into account whether my task environment is static or dynamic in nature. So these are some, in this table, again taken from the same book, these are the examples of different kinds of task environments. Crossword puzzle is observable fully, it's a uh, single agent task environment. It is deterministic, it is episodic, it is sequential, etc., etc. So these are the different possibilities. So in this example, there is no non-deterministic written here. Stochastics are mentioned. So backgammon is stochastic, medical diagnosis is stochastic, etc. So you can look into this table and think about why they have been labeled as they are labeled. So this is, I think, all I had to say for today. We break for, today's class will end here. In the next class, we'll talk a little more computationally with, when we talk about the structure of rational agents. If you have any discussion or any comments to make from what we discussed today,